What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Catching a Vibe. I'm your host, Drew, joined by the co-host, Mike. Week 4 is here, guys. How are we feeling today?
Good, ready to get week 4 going. I'm excited to see if we got some good start and sits.
I'm feeling good about my starts and sits this week.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what you got.
All right.
Let's see what you got.
All right, I'll start off. So I'm going to start off with receivers. My 2 starts. My first start is JSN versus the Lions. The Lions are allowing the most passes to the slot receiver. We have seen Cooper Kupp kill him in week 1. He had, 12 catches, 100 yards. Then Chris Godwin, week 2, he had 100 yards, and you predicted him to have a big game. He had over 20 points in fantasy. I think this is the perfect week for JSN. Week 2 against the Patriots, he had 12 catches, over 100 yards, and JSN is in the game 80% of the time. He is overtaking Lockett for a receiver too for the Seahawks, so I like his matchup against the Lions.
It's a good pick, good play. So I'm going to go with what I'm going to call the waiver wire start of the week. Some of you guys might have just picked this guy up off the waiver wire. I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson. He's going against Cincinnati. I mean, this game might end up being one of the highest scoring games of the week. Andy Dalton's looking good. He's throwing last week. He looked spectacular. Mm-hmm. You thought he was giving up for dead, really.
Yeah.
But Deontay Johnson had he's kind of projected at 14 points for the week. I think he's going to get a little higher than that. I think I'm going to say he's my waiver wire start of the week.
Okay. He's got the red rifle thrown to him now, so he could definitely have another good week. All right, my second start at receiver, I'm going DJ Moore versus the Rams. DJ has been struggling because Caleb's, growing. He's learning what an NFL defense is like. Last week, he had 8 catches for 78 yards. I'm hopeful this is the start where DJ Moore starts exploding for those big games we saw him had last year. You remember that Thursday night when he had, 3 or 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, he had a big night that night. So, yeah, I agree.
Because I think he's one of the best receivers in the league, and the Rams are 30th against receivers. So I like his matchup, and that's why he's a start for me.
I like it. So my big time start of the week is I'm going to go with the opposite of JSN. I'm going with DK going against Detroit. He's been on fire this year, and he's going against Detroit's defense. They're 19th against the pass, giving up 216 yards a game. They're 31st and giving up fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. So I like that matchup right there. I mean, he's projected at 14.5 points of the week. I think he's going to get higher than that. So I think he's kind of my safe play, my start of the week for wide receivers. I definitely like DK.
Yeah, that's a good one there. All right, so now we're doing our sits for receivers. And my first guy, I'm going Garrett Wilson versus the Broncos. Receivers that have played against Sertan. DK Metcalf, he had 5.9 points in their matchup. Then George Pickens had 4.9. Then Mike Evans had 3.7 last week. Sertan's him. So it's going to be a tough matchup for G5. And I think A-Rod's going to see this opportunity to get the other guys involved. Breece Hall is a guy that comes to mind. He's very involved with the passing game right now. Lazard caught a touchdown last week. Mike Williams, he's getting more and more healthy. I see him having a decent game, and Conklin has a favorable matchup because the Broncos are like the bottom tier against the tight ends.
Yep. So my sit, I'm going with, he's kind of popped off the last couple of weeks. I'm going with Quentin Johnson. He's going against Kansas City's defense. No one knows the status of Justin Herbert. Is he going to play or is he not going to play? So that's going to play a big role into that game. The Chiefs' defense is they're not the best, right? They're giving up 15 fantasy points to wide receivers in that position. So they're about middle tier of the defense goes, but I just think they're gonna, take him out of the game, and if Herbert's not in there, he's really gonna struggle. Yeah. So I got him as a sit.
Mm-hmm. All right, my second sit, I'm going Tyreek Hill. Who would have thought?
Right?
People are thinking about sitting Tyreek Hill. He was probably the second or third overall in your league, but Skylar Thompson or Huntley or Boyle, I don't trust any of those scrubs. If you watched the game last week, Skylar Thompson, no joke, looks like an average Joe, like trying to play in an NFL game. Like he looked so nervous. He was bumping into the running backs, handing it off, and he couldn't complete a pass over 5 yards. And that Dolphins offense is not the same without Tua. So I'm too scared to start Tyreek Hill.
I agree. I had him down, but I'm going to go with somebody else because Tennessee is a good defense this year. They're third in giving up the least fantasy points to the receiver position. They're third in passing defense. They're only giving up 139 yards a game. So who's it going to be? Tim Boyle or Tyrone Huntley? I mean, who's going to start? So I agree with sitting Tyreek Hill. And let me say this. Sitting is questionable because you drafted him. You're going to have to march him out there. But I would temper expectations on what he's going to produce. Now, if you got your wide receiver core is kind of deep, then you might be able to, sit him. But I know most of you people out there think we're crazy by saying sitting the guy that you picked third in the draft. But if you got another choice, maybe I would look at that, player to go with. But I agree.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can have fun starting him and he getting you 5 points.
Right. I agree. So my risky sit kind of / temper your expectations guy is another guy that was drafted at the end of the first round in your fantasy drafts, Garrett Wilson. He's going against Denver. Denver's defense is number 1 in fantasy points given up to the receiver. That means they're not giving any points up. He's going to be covered by Patrick Surtain. So he's in for a long day, I think, with Aaron Rodgers. They're second in the passing defense yards per game. That's only 133 yards they're giving up. So they're pretty stingy on the back end. And so far this year, Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson have not been able to connect. I don't know what's going on there, but they're struggling as far as connections and getting together. I know Aaron Rodgers made a statement that it's going to be amazing when they start linking up and hooking up. So I don't think it's going to be this game. Yeah. So let's just say the projections for this week, going in this week, they got Garrett Wilson at 13.9 fantasy points for the week. That's 5 receptions for 60 yards, and a half touchdown. So I don't think he's going to get to those numbers. I mean, like I said, we said on Tyreek and Garrett Wilson, you guys picked these guys early in your drafts. It's hard not to march them out there and play them, but I would be scared of what these guys are going to produce for your lineup. So if you have a strong wide receiver core, then you might want to put one of those other guys in there.
Mm-hmm. So. All right. Now's for the running back. The starts for running back. All right, my first guy, I'm going Chuba Hubbard versus the Bengals. Chuba had a great game against the Raiders. He gets a lot of targets as a running back. He averages 5 per game in the last 2 weeks. The offense looks so much better with Dalton, the red rifle. We saw Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler score touchdowns against the Bengals. And Stevenson, week 1, had a good game against that Bengals defense. So that's why I have Chuba as a start this week. He's projected 14 points. I could see him being around that range, maybe a little bit more.
Right. He was one of my guys I was going to start. He was my waiver wire start. A lot of you guys might have went out and picked him up. Mm-hmm. He played 43 snaps out of 74. That's 58%. But he's going against Cincinnati. They're 16th ranked, giving up fantasy points to the running back position. So these stats are good too. He had 21 carries for 114 yards last week, 5 receptions, 55 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had 27.9 points last week. I think he's definitely going to be in play where he's going to get some receptions. And like you said, I think he's going to get to that 13 fantasy points and probably higher than that. I think I'm going to put him about the 18 points, and that's a good startable running back in the league. So
no doubt.
I like Chuba Hubbard. So I got another start that I'm going to go with Jerome Ford. He's going against the Raiders. The Raiders' defense is not very good. They're 30th in total defense, 29th in rush defense, giving up 152 yards. Jerome Ford played last week. He had 53 snaps. That's 79% of being on the field. To Deontay Foreman only had 11 snaps, 16%. So we like that. He's definitely getting the bulk of all the play. I know he's a little banged up and he's questionable, so keep looking out to make sure he's going to play, but he's one of my starts. Mm-hmm. He's got good speed and he's good at catching the balls out of the backfield. So I like Jerome Ford. He's going against the Raiders, and the Raiders aren't stopping anybody on the deep.
Well, and the Browns, they're a mess right now. He might get a bunch of dump-off passes.
Yeah.
Because their offensive line can't block nobody now.
Right.
It's weird. But, all right, my second start, I'm going Derrick Henry versus the Bills. Henry was rolling against the Cowboys. He had 25 carries, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Henry has scored in every game this year so far.
All 3 games?
Yeah, I think if the Ravens want to beat the Bills, they have to run the ball and keep the ball away from Josh Allen. So I like Derrick Henry versus the Bills this week.
I like Derrick Henry as well. I think that this is what they brought him in for, is that ground and pound and smash teams like he did against Dallas last week. He looked unstoppable. He's the old Derrick Henry. So I agree. He's a good start at the running back position. I agree. So my guy is my smash play of the week, and he's going to be started everywhere in everybody's lineup. I'm going with Kyren Williams going against the Bears. The Bears' defense is pretty good. They're 24th in fantasy points given up to the running back. They're 17th in rush yards a game, 121. But the bottom line is this guy is out 52 snaps out of 58. 90% of the offensive snaps, Kyren Williams is out on the field. I love that. I want that guy to play in every game, right? So last week he ran for 24 carries, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for 27, and another touchdown. So he had a 3-touchdown games. Now let's look at the backup running backs. Blake Corum had 0 snaps. They're not even putting this guy on the field, and everybody wanted to go out and draft him thinking he was going to be scaring Kyren Williams from playing time. Mm-hmm. This guy ain't even touching the field. They had Ronnie Rivers come out for 6 snaps, only to give Kyren Williams a breath of fresh air, and then he went back out there and managed to destroy and have a great game. Mm-hmm. I'm going with Kyren Williams, and I know everybody out there is thinking, well, that's a given. Well, I'm not taking him out of my lineup until he gives some of that 90% production away. So you got to play him.
Yeah, okay. So my first sit for running backs, I'm going with Kenneth Walker versus the Lions. The Lions have been very, very good against running backs in fantasy. James Conner had 3 points. Rashad White had 3 points. And Dan Campbell has his boys bite kneecaps off right now. So I don't like any running back that plays against them.
Yeah. But Ken Walker was one of I was going to call him my spicy sit, but since you used him, I'll go with someone else. But you got to look at Detroit's defense. They're 10th in total defense given up. They're 4th in rushing defense given up. They're only giving up 77 rush yards a game. So Kenneth Walker is a good sit. Like you drafted him, you might want to look at somebody else. Even Zach Charbonnet is another guy because he might get the start because Ken's banged up a little bit, or they might split carries just until Ken Walker gets healthy again. So
don't play either.
Yeah, I would definitely think about sitting both of them. If you got another running back and RB2 on your lineup, I would definitely look somewhere else because Detroit's looking real good against the rushing, against the rush offense. So one of my sits is going to be Rachaad White. He's going against Philadelphia. I know Philadelphia's defense is still in question. They have looked pretty good lately, but, they had been a running funnel where everybody was able to rush on them or even throw on them. They're 24th in rushing defense, giving up 134 yards a game. Now, Rachaad White had 42 snaps out of that 74%, where, Bucky Irvin's everybody's darling. Everybody wants him to get in there. The coach is saying they want to get him more snaps, and he's looking more shifty, more speedy, and a better receiver, he looks. So Rachaad White's on his production is starting to come down, and so he's going to be one of my sits. Now, the thing I seen today, check around at Bucky Irvin's a little banged up, and he might be questionable to start. So if that's the case, you never know. Rachaad White might be okay, but he's one of my sits. I gotta kind of sit him.
Yeah. Well, he's also one of my sits too. This reminds me a lot of Dameon Pierce last year. Right. You remember how high everybody was on Dameon because his rookie year, he ran for 100 yards. He runs super hard like Pacheco. But he just fell off, and Devin Singletary beat him out for the Texans last year.
More offensive.
And Bucky, more buzz is going on with Bucky. I could see it being the same situation with Rachaad White.
Right. Yeah, that's the scariest thing for the starting RB on the team is that your backup's out there going out there and out-producing you on his limited snaps where he's looking really good, and then the coach is going, you know what, I got to get this guy out on the field a little bit more. So then the starting running back loses production. So that is a scary thing. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with James Cook as my second sit against the Ravens. The Ravens are the number one rushing defense, only giving up 50 rush yards a game. I think Buffalo's going to have to air it out a little more because the Ravens are towards the bottom as far as passing defense. So I think Josh Allen's going to take advantage of the back end, throwing the ball all around, and they're going to have to shy away from running the ball. And I think James Cook they're going to kind of slow him down as far as the receiving side of it too. So I'm a little scared with James Cook. I know most of you people might got to start him because he has looked fantastic so far this year. He's kind of coming down a little bit, but he's one of my guys I'm worried about, and I kind of want to temper expectations with him. And, if I got a better option, I'd look elsewhere.
I like that. All right. Now, quarterbacks. My quarterback start of the week, I'm going CJ Stroud versus the Jags. The Jags might be the worst team in the league right now. I mean, Bills destroyed them. And the Browns, who have looked terrible through the first 3 weeks, they beat them. Then the Dolphins came back and beat them. The Bills scored on every drive in the first half. And Stroud is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's going to go off against the Jags. And the Texans put up a stinker last week, and I think that ends this week. Stroud getting back, it's a division game. They won, set the tone, who is the alpha of the division. So that's why I have C.J. Stroud at quarterback to start.
C.J. Stroud with all those receivers going against Jacksonville's defense, they're not very good. I agree. I think C.J. Stroud's going to have a big day against the Jags, so I would start him as well. So my must-start QB is going to be Kyler Murray. He's going against Washington. Washington is dead last at giving up points to the QB position. I think Kyler has started this year, and he looks like old Kyler. He's running around, throwing the ball, extending plays, taking off, running down the field, or he's throwing bombs over top of everybody. Washington's defense is 29th in total defense. They're giving up 377 yards a game. 31st against passing yards given up. That's 255 yards a game. I just think Kyler's going to have a fantastic day. You know, I think he's number 5 right now in at the QB position right now. So I like Kyler Murray. He's my smash start at the QB position.
It's a good one. All right, my sit for quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson versus the Steelers. Anthony has been struggling real bad the past 2 weeks. He had 9 points against the Packers and 5 points against the Bears. And he's completing 50% of his passes. That is so bad. I mean, both are good defenses, but they're not the Steelers. They're not the yellow and black. So Anthony Richardson is getting a sit this week.
Oh, yeah. Anthony Richardson's going against the Steelers. The way he's looked this year, I'm definitely sitting him. Like we predicted at the beginning of the year, he's one of them boom or bust guys, right? If he doesn't get that rushing stats up, he's not going to be a big, high fantasy quarterback, scorer.
Yeah.
So I would sit him as well until you see some production out of him. Right now, he's throwing more interceptions than he is completions. So
yeah.
I'm scared of him too. So my sit QB, and I know nobody's going to sit him. He's coming into the year as the number 2 quarterback, Jalen Hurts, going against Tampa Bay. I'm worried about, both of those receivers, A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, are both hurt. And they got a bye week next week. I think they're going to give them that extended vacation, those 2 days off, those 2 weeks off, so they can get healthy and take another run at it. I don't see them marching those guys out. Plus, Saquon's in town, and Jalen Hurts ain't running the ball as much as he used to be. He's not going to put up those big rushing stats like he did last year. And he's definitely, like I predicted, he's not going to rush for 15 touchdowns. So his numbers are all dipping really fast, real quick. So, and I think with those receivers out, he's going to struggle trying to find someone.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's going to sit him, but I would be scared of what he's going to produce for you out there with those receivers out. So if you got a strong RB2 on your roster, or QB2, I would definitely think about playing him over Jalen Hurts.
All right, now everybody's favorite position, tight ends. My start, this is a waiver wire pickup. Tyler Conklin versus the Broncos. I like the Jets' offense. And with how questionable tight ends have been, you want to get a tight end that has a good quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers looks like the old A-Rod. And A-Rod dumps the ball off, and he doesn't want to take those big hits anymore with his old age. So I could see him dumping it off to Conklin this week, since Garrett Wilson's going to be getting locked up against Surtain.
Right. I agree with Tyler Conklin. He's definitely a good play. So my start, I know I had a rant about Jalen Hurts, but I'm going with his tight end, Dallas Goedert. He's going against Tampa Bay. I think he's the only option that he's going to have to throw the ball to. Last week, he had 11 targets, 10 receptions, 170 yards last week, 27 fantasy points. Right now, he's tight end 1 in fantasy, and he only had 1 big game. That's telling you how bad the tight end position is. Like, if you go out and you get 7 points out of a tight end, that's a win with this tight end position. Right. So I got to go with Dallas Goedert.
I like that one. All right, my sit of the week is Hunter Henry versus the 49ers. The Niners defense has been struggling the past 2 weeks. The Rams came back and beat them. Then the Vikings beat them pretty bad. But they are phenomenal against the tight ends. They're first against tight ends, and tight ends have only had 4 catches against them. So Hunter Henry, I know the Patriots offense is a stinker, and you don't know who's the number 1 option, but they're going to take away Hunter and make Brissett throw to some other guy. Yeah. So that's why I'm sitting him.
I agree. 49ers defense is going to slow down the Patriots offense to where they might crawl for a couple yards. I don't think they're going to get the ball out to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So my sit is every tight end in the top 5 that you drafted. I'm sitting every one of them. That's how bad they are. So, no, seriously, my sit is Mark Andrews. He's complete trash this year for you, right? He played 21 snaps out of 63 total. That's 33%. He's on the sideline. Like, come on, what's this guy doing?
Everybody tackle now.
He produced 0 points last week. That's what we scored. He scored as much as we did last week. Until Mark Andrews shows up and puts up some points, I'm not starting him. I'll go pick up a waiver wire tight end like Conklin or Cole Kmet and put them in there because they can put up a couple points for you. So I gotta sit Mark Andrews.
Yeah, that's a very fair sit right there. That wraps up the starts and sits of week 4. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the video, go ahead, give it a like. If you're new here, please subscribe. Help the channel grow. We'll see you next time. Peace.